I walked into my house on a Tuesday and heard my wife of 7 years getting pounded by my own brother in our bedroom. In that moment, I lost my marriage, my family, and the two people I trusted most. Hello, Reddit I plus here. I found out my wife was sleeping with my younger brother 2 weeks after we buried our mother. Not an emotional affair, not some drunken mistake. I walked into my own house at 2:17 on a Wednesday afternoon and heard her laughing in our bed while he told her all the things he used to envy about me, my marriage, my career, my life. Then he said, "Now it's all mine." And the sickest part? She laughed like it was romantic. I didn't kick the door open. I didn't scream. I just stood there in the hallway holding a bag of takeout food while my entire life rotted from the inside out. Her voice sounded different, wild, breathless, like she hadn't felt alive in years. I hadn't heard that version of her in a long time, maybe ever. And hearing my brother answer her back nearly made me black out. 9 years together, 7 married. We had a 5-year-old son named Caleb who thought his uncle was the coolest person on earth. My brother used to come over every Sunday. Barbecues, movie nights, family holidays. He was the one who held my son in the hospital after he was born because my hands were shaking too hard. I trusted him more than anyone. And while I was working overtime trying to keep our family afloat after mom's cancer bills destroyed us financially, he was sliding into my wife's bed the second I left for work. I backed out of the house quietly before they heard me. Then I threw up in my front yard. The worst part was realizing this hadn't just started. Suddenly, every weird moment over the past year snapped into focus like shattered glass, finally forming a picture. Her guarding her phone like classified government intel. My brother suddenly showing up whenever I wasn't home. The way she'd compare me to him in little harmless jokes. "Why can't you dress more like him?" Ryan actually listens when people talk. "Maybe you should start going to the gym with your brother." I thought she was trying to motivate me. Turns out she was auditioning my replacement. I sat in my truck for nearly an hour staring at the steering wheel while they continued upstairs. I could hear faint music through the walls. She had made a playlist for cheating on me with my own blood. That detail broke something inside me, not the sex, not even the betrayal, the effort, the planning, the comfort. People don't make playlists for mistakes. I called a lawyer before I even drove away. Then I called my cousin and asked if Caleb could stay with him that weekend. I lied and said I had a work emergency. After that, I went straight to the bank. See, here's where things get uglier. 3 months earlier, my wife convinced me to sell a small property my grandfather left me. Said we should combine everything into our future. I trusted her, so I deposited the money into our shared account. Almost 200 grand. While sitting in that parking lot, I checked the account history for the first time in months. She'd already been draining it. Designer stores, hotel bookings, jewelry purchases, thousands disappearing every week. One charge made my stomach drop. A luxury beachfront resort. 2 tickets, booked for the same week as our anniversary. She was planning a vacation with my brother using money from my dead grandfather. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because my brain couldn't process how cartoonishly evil this had become. Over the next 10 days, I became a ghost in my own life. I smiled at dinner, played dinosaurs with my son, kissed my wife goodnight, then stayed awake beside her while she slept after texting my brother under the blanket. I started gathering everything: phone records, bank statements, security footage from our neighbor's camera showing his car parked outside my house while I was at work. I hired a private investigator who uncovered something even worse. The affair had started while our mother was dying. Apparently, they bonded emotionally during hospital visits while I was handling paperwork and arguing with insurance companies. According to the investigator, several nurses remembered them acting strangely close. I nearly put my fist through the wall reading that report. Mom spent her final months believing her family was united. Meanwhile, my wife and brother were sneaking off to hospital bathrooms like hormonal teenagers. But wait, it gets worse. Because of course it does. One night, while my wife was in the shower, her phone lit up beside me, a message from my brother. "You tell him about the baby yet?" My heart stopped. I opened the conversation. Hundreds of messages, photos, videos, plans, and yes, she was pregnant. Only she wasn't sure whose child it was. There were entire conversations about timing ovulation between sleeping with both of us. I physically couldn't breathe reading it. Then I found the message that destroyed me completely. My wife wrote, "If it's his, we'll never have to struggle financially again. If it's yours, at least the baby will actually be beautiful." I stared at that sentence until the words stopped looking real. That woman had held my hand during panic attacks. I stayed with her after her father abandoned her. I worked 70-hour weeks so she could stay home with our son. And behind my back, she talked about using me like some ATM with a pulse. I copied every message to my laptop, every single one. Then I waited. 3 days later, my entire family gathered for my uncle's retirement party. Nearly 40 people there, cousins, aunts, friends, even my late mother's best friend. My wife arrived in a tight red dress. My brother showed up 20 minutes later, pretending not to notice her. The acting almost impressed me, almost. Dinner went on normally for about an hour before my uncle asked if anyone wanted to say something nice about family. I stood up holding my wine glass, and I said, "Actually, I do." My wife smiled at me. My brother looked bored. Then I connected my phone to the TV. The first thing that appeared was hotel footage of them kissing in a lobby. The room went silent. Then came screenshots, messages, photos, transaction records, the playlist titled "While He's Working." You could hear forks dropping onto plates. My wife turned white instantly. My brother lunged for the remote, but my cousin stepped between us before he could reach me. Then came the final slide, a screenshot of her message about the baby being beautiful if it belonged to my brother. My aunt gasped so loudly it echoed through the room. My wife burst into tears immediately, not because she felt guilty, because she got caught. My brother started yelling that I violated their privacy. Privacy. That word nearly made me black out from rage. Then my son walked into the room, and everything stopped. He looked around confused while adults stood frozen in horror. My wife tried rushing toward him, but he moved away from her and grabbed my leg instead. That moment changed everything for me, because no matter how angry I was, Caleb didn't deserve to become collateral damage in our disaster. So I picked him up, grabbed my car keys, and left, while my entire family exploded behind me. Apparently, after I drove away, things got even uglier. My uncle punched my brother. My cousin's wife threw wine at my wife. My grandmother reportedly slapped my brother so hard his lip split. And the final twist? The pregnancy wasn't even viable. A week later, my wife called me from the hospital, sobbing after losing the baby. She said she needed me. I told her she should call the father. Then I hung up. That was 8 months ago. The divorce is almost finalized now. My brother moved to another state because half the family refuses to speak to him. My wife's living in a tiny apartment working 2 jobs because the judge absolutely destroyed her financially after discovering she'd been secretly moving money during the marriage. And me? I still wake up angry sometimes, still replay those sounds in my head on bad nights. But my son sleeps peacefully down the hall in our new place, and for the first time in years, my home feels honest, quiet, clean. No lies hiding in the walls anymore. 3 months after the divorce papers were filed, I made the mistake of checking my wife's social media. Yeah, I know. Rookie move. My therapist literally told me not to do it. My cousin changed her contact name in my phone to "Do not respond to this woman." Even my son somehow understood that mommy made daddy sad and would pat my arm whenever I got quiet. But one night after Caleb fell asleep, curiosity won, and that decision opened a whole new level of insanity. Her profile had transformed into this bizarre pity parade. Cryptic quotes about betrayal, posts about toxic men who weaponize pain. Selfies captioned with things like, "Healing in silence." Silence. This woman detonated my life with my own brother and now wanted to cosplay as the wounded victim. But then I noticed something strange. My brother was nowhere on her page anymore. No likes, no comments, no photos, nothing. Which was weird because during the affair, they practically breathed through the same lungs. Then I got my answer. Around midnight, my phone rang from an unknown number. I ignored it. It rang again. Then again. Finally, I answered because I thought maybe something happened to Caleb's school. Instead, I heard my brother crying. Actually crying. I almost hung up immediately, but then he said, "She lied to both of us." That got my attention. Apparently, after I exposed them, my ex spiraled hard. My brother thought they'd finally be together openly, now that the marriage was over. Instead, she blamed him for everything. Told him he ruined her life. Told him she never would have cheated if he hadn't pushed things. Then she emptied what remained of their secret account and disappeared for almost 2 weeks. You read that right. Secret account. These psychopaths literally had a hidden bank account while I was stressing over daycare costs and mortgage payments. But here's the best part. She wasn't disappearing to grieve the relationship. She'd been seeing another guy, a third guy, some personal trainer from her gym. At this point, I actually started laughing on the phone because the situation became so absurd it sounded fake. My brother wasn't crying because he felt guilty. He was crying because the woman he betrayed me for betrayed him too. Poetry. Apparently, she'd been telling the trainer that my brother was emotionally unstable and obsessed with her. The same lines she used on me near the end of our marriage. She recycled manipulation the way normal people recycle plastic. My brother asked if we could meet. I said absolutely not. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. She told me Caleb might not even be yours. I swear to God, the room went cold. I hung up immediately. Didn't sleep that night. Didn't breathe properly either. The next morning, I bought a DNA test without telling anyone, and waiting for those results nearly killed me. Those 5 days were torture. Every memory became suspicious, every timeline twisted in my head. Was my son's smile really mine? Did he get his eyes from me? Had my entire life been fake from the beginning? When the results finally came in, I sat in my car outside the clinic staring at the envelope for 10 straight minutes before opening it. 99.99%. He was my son. I broke down crying so hard I had to pull over before driving home, not because I doubted loving him. Nothing could ever change that, but because she'd poisoned even the purest thing in my life just to hurt me one last time. That same evening, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, and she looked awful. Not movie messy, real messy. Mascara stains, shaking hands, hoodie pulled over greasy hair, the kind of broken that can't be filtered for Instagram. Caleb was at my cousin's place, thankfully, because what happened next would have destroyed him. She begged me to talk, said she'd made mistakes, said she missed her family. Then she dropped to her knees, crying in the hallway. I remember just staring at her, thinking how strange it was that this woman used to feel like home to me. Now she felt like a stranger wearing my memories as a disguise. Then she said the most unbelievable thing yet. She manipulated your brother too. I almost laughed in her face. Manipulated him. He was 34 years old, not some hypnotized teenager. But according to her version, she'd been vulnerable after losing her father. Emotionally neglected by me, overwhelmed by motherhood, depressed after her miscarriage, confused about life, confused about love, confused about literally everything except apparently hotel reservations. Nothing was ever her fault. That's when she finally admitted something I don't think she meant to say out loud. She said, "I didn't think you'd actually leave." That sentence hit harder than the affair because suddenly everything made sense. She thought she could cheat and still keep me. Thought I'd yell, cry, maybe drink too much. Then eventually forgive her because I always fixed things. I was the stable one, the provider, the dependable idiot who kept the lights on while everyone else played games. She genuinely believed I'd stay. And honestly, before all this happened, maybe I would have. That realization scared me more than anything. I told her to leave. She started sobbing harder. Then anger replaced the tears almost instantly, like a switch flipped. She called me cold, said I was abandoning her when she needed support most, accused me of turning the family against her. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You think you're innocent? You were never enough emotionally." There it was. The final knife. Not accountability, not remorse. Just blame. I opened the apartment door and calmly repeated, "Leave." She stood there staring at me for a few seconds like she didn't recognize the man in front of her anymore. Maybe she didn't, because the version of me that tolerated disrespect died the day I stood in that hallway listening to my brother. In my bed. Eventually she left, but the story still wasn't over. 2 weeks later, my brother got arrested. Turns out the gym trainer she cheated with had a girlfriend. And when he discovered the affair, somebody anonymously sent him screenshots of conversations between all three of them. The trainer blamed my brother for exposing everything. My brother blamed my ex. A fight broke out outside a bar. Police got involved. Now my brother's facing assault charges and trying to borrow money from relatives who barely acknowledge he exists anymore. Meanwhile, my ex keeps posting inspirational quotes online like she survived a war instead of causing one. And me? Last Friday, Caleb and I made homemade pizza together in our tiny apartment kitchen. He got flour everywhere, burned one crust completely black, then looked up at me smiling and said, "Dad, this is the best house ever. Not biggest, not fanciest, best." And honestly, for the first time in a very long time, I agreed with him.